and welcome to the Meraklis Being series. I'm your host and self mastery coach, Shweta Shibraman, and this is a show where we discover, learn, and implement lessons from others' life journeys, others who I believe epitomize miraculous in its truest spirit. Individuals who live life to the fullest, who worked hard to get where they are today, and are passionate in what they do. Today's speaker is Millin Sangha Gujral. She is the founder of Happy Strokes, located in Delhi. Millin is a counseling and clinical psychologist with over 10 years of experience in the mental health field. This episode is part one of our three-part series on mental health for high achievers with psychologists. And today, we are exploring the what, the why, and the how of imposter syndrome. We are going to have a fantastic conversation, and I'm super excited and curious to know more about this phenomena where all of us end up feeling like a fraud for no reason. Let's dive in. Hi, Millin. Welcome to the Miraculous Being Show. I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here, and I'm so glad that and honored to be here for such an important discussion that we're going to be having today.
Same here. I'm super excited. But before we go into the specific topic for today, I'd love for the audience to hear more about your journey. So, if you could kind of look back at your journey today from where you are, what would you say were pivotal or defining moments in your journey?
So the entire journey in itself is something that you learn from the beliefs you grow up with, etc. But I think the point where I realized that I wanted to go into a field which was about mental health and talk about mental health and spread that awareness, I think that was the highlight moment of my life. Because when you're a kid, you want to be everything. You want to be a superstar, you want to be a scientist, you want to be an astronaut. But when you do get the clarity of where you feel you are headed, I think that is a eureka moment for it was a eureka moment for me. Um, Particularly when I was able to get into the field, understand it more, and also I think the biggest gift from the field was that I was able to understand myself better and be able to have the insight that we all need to work on ourselves regardless of where we come from, who we are, what gender we are. We are all trying to kind of just be better versions of ourselves. I think that was something that added on to my journey. And as I have I've been in the field, I've been a psychologist for 10 plus years, but I can still say that even today, I am constantly learning from life, from my own clients, and there is so much more to life. So that's a little about me. I think as for Happy Strokes, I started this during COVID because that's when I realized that so many people needed somewhere needed support. And there were times, when I went into a little bit of the quarantine, I realized that, okay, this is the time when you need the maximum amount of support or, like pampering or maybe just like kind words. And that's when I started Happy Strokes. And I decided that, what, there are so many people out there who would also need that, like I do. Let me start something which gives them a positive push, a little bit of, sunshine in their lives. And that's how my journey started with Happy Strokes.
And having followed your Instagram feed, I can definitely say it is more than a little dose of sunshine. It is such profound thoughts illustrated so simply and beautifully. So thank you for doing the work you do. But I'm sure, Millin, as you shared that, I'm sure there were many challenges along this journey. It was not just making a decision and following through. So how did you navigate the many challenges that possibly came up?
So I think the biggest challenge for me was, being able to believe in myself, um, and believe that I am capable of doing things. Because, growing up, my brother was like, he was a intelligent kid. And I was a child who would get distracted by everything, and was not the kind of child who would want to get like good marks or be able to, remember things as well. And I struggled in that department to some extent. And that's why I think I also, how as when you're growing up, your marks and your mark sheets define you as an individual, as a human being. And a lot of times I did that too. I, kind of counted my self-worth according to the marks I was getting, and that would put me down, and that would constantly make me feel that would I be ever able to kind of, achieve something in life? Because if I'm not able to do this, then would I really be able to get, kind of achieve something bigger? So I think the journey, the biggest challenge I faced was to kind of, start believing in myself, kind of, tell myself, or start winning, or start actually celebrating small wins, because, a lot of times those are not noticed. And you kind of keep going and you don't realize how far you've come. And I started realizing that, things like me getting selected for a writing competition, or me getting certain marks in one subject, like for example, English. I used to be very fond of reading. Just to get good marks in English, but somehow I let the other things overshadow that. So, I started realizing that, what, you need to focus on the good too at times, and you need to give yourself a pat on the back, even if nobody does. Even though my parents were very supportive throughout the process, they never told me that you have to do this. They gave me, a more open space to grow. But, as a child, you kind of end up comparing a lot to your peers, to the world around you, what you see. So, that was the biggest challenge. And for me, I think overcoming that meant accepting that I'm a human being who can make mistakes, that I'm a human being who's going to falter, fall, and have to get up. And that's okay. So the journey started by, I think, forgiving myself for my own flaws and kind of learning to accept myself. It sounds very easy, but it is honestly the hardest thing I've ever done. Because that little tiny voice in your head every time you're trying to kind of, tell yourself, no, you know what, you'll get through. That tiny voice will be like, but what if? And to shut that down initially is a challenge, because it'll bring all the memories and everything to you of things where you felt not good enough. But acceptance does not mean loving yourself. So it's not there yet. So starting to accept yourself takes a while, but the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more comfortable it gets for you. So that was one thing. And I would never say that, I am completely there. I think healing or working on yourself and dealing with challenges is somewhere a lifelong process, because the minute you kind of feel that, okay, you know what, I'm over this, life's going to give you a curveball and you're going to be like, oh, really? It's not over yet. And there's something more, because there's are multiple facets to everything, to even emotions, to even thoughts. There's so many things happening in the background. And I realized that it's okay. I mean, there's no rush. I don't have to, this is not a race. I'm not competing with anybody but myself. And I'm going to take my time, because there will be certain things maybe 10 years ago I did not realize, which I do now. So when I do now, I give myself that grace to be able to work on myself, rather than telling myself that, you know what, despite of so many years, you're still here. That is so important, kind of mapping out your journey and kind of telling yourself, you know what, you have come a long way, and it's okay. If you're not there yet, you need to be kind to yourself. So that, I think, has really, really helped, and a lot of self-work.
Wow, so beautiful. And I think what I heard was, celebrating those small wins, ensuring that we accept the humanness in us and that we will falter at times, and being kind and compassionate to pick ourselves up. And I think the third, what you said, is kind of the mantra of this podcast as well, wherein we feel, we interview work in progress humans. And like you said, this work is never complete. It is a lifelong process of discovering and unraveling more of those layers and facets and healing through that. So Beautiful. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for being vulnerable enough to share that, because in a world where everybody thinks people are sorted, this is always
Oh
welcome.
no.
It's always welcome to hear how people navigate it, because I think it gives us hope also that A, we are not alone, and two, we can also find a path out of that mess that we are in, right? So
Absolutely.
beautiful. And I know that you've practiced as a mental health professional for almost 10 years now. I'm curious, have you noticed any patterns specifically, or, recurring common patterns around mental health for high achievers specifically?
I think the biggest one would be self-doubt.
Mm.
I see that so often because, there is so much of competition around us now. For every little thing, we are competing for even our basic needs, to be very honest. And, you know, getting there, that somewhere that tiny voice is always with us, which will ask, what if somebody else is better? What if, I could do this task in a different manner? Or what if I get criticism for the way I'm doing it? What if the result is not good? And I think what we term as imposter syndrome now has existed for centuries and centuries. Like, I still remember talking to my own parents and seeing that, somewhere that self doubt has persisted for generations. And it's just not come to the surface because, the world was not as open at that point of time. We did not have that open communication. We did not see what was happening at the other end of the world. But now, because we do, and the world has become smaller in terms of communication, we end up comparing so much, and we end up learning so much too from that, right? So I think the biggest challenge is to quieten that voice that keeps questioning, um whether we are good enough, right? Because somewhere, all our childhood, we have been told that, you need to be a certain way, you need to sit a certain way, you need to behave a certain way, especially when people are involved. If guests are coming in, don't take the biscuits from the tray. If guests are coming in, wear these clothes, tie your hair properly, don't sit or lie down on the sofa. So we've all been there somewhere, right? And somewhere that inculcates in children that, what, I have to be a certain way to feel accepted, right? And that's where we start thinking that, okay, what, I for in order to for other people to accept things, I have to do everything perfectly. And if I'm not perfect, if I am not doing it to the T, then I might not do it at all. That causes a lot of doubt. And with that doubt comes other issues like depression. People face anxiety. Some people will also face obsessive compulsive disorders, like they will fall prone to that. There will be others who will fall prone to addictions. So it can lead to multiple, it might feel like a very small thing, but it has far wide consequences, like really ones that are very challenging to manage for the individual. Um, what is important is being able to recognize and acknowledge that that is something we deal with. I think the first step to any kind of navigation or working on yourself is acceptance, is the acknowledgement that, this is something that I'm feeling with. We hear constantly that, your feelings are valid, and we are reading it all over the internet that, it's okay to feel your feelings. But how many times are we really accepting that? It's easier to read, it sounds very good, but when we are feeling a certain which way, we label or judge our own emotions. For example, I recently did a workshop with these young 7th standard girls, and I they said that we all get angry. And I said, okay, so what do you think anger is? So they're like, it's a bad emotion. And I asked them, why do you think it is a bad emotion? And the answer was, because, you end up doing bad things or saying hurting people and things like that. So, when we end up kind of judging our own emotions, we end up avoiding them more. And the more we avoid them, the more we doubt ourselves. Because it's like, see, emotions are a very important part of us. They're basically like signals that our brain or our body is sending about things we're not understanding or things that are not aligning with us or feeling good. No emotion is bad. It's how we are dealing with it that makes all the difference, right? But when we are told, for example, we get angry and somebody will tell us, you're always angry. You're not supposed to get angry. That's how people talk. You tend to feel that, you know what, I'm not even allowed to feel angry. And you will bottle that up. And then every time you feel angry, you're going to question yourself. Am I a bad person? And I have had people come in and ask me that, I feel so angry. I'm such a bad person. People tell me that I'm not a good human being because I'm getting angry. And I'm just like, understand this. It's a part of you. There is no good and bad in an emotion. So self-doubt can lead to a lot of emotions. Very important to get in touch with your own feelings, accept them and acknowledge them in order to learn from them, to understand what it is that they're trying to tell us or what it is they're trying to say to us and grow from that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think am I good enough is a undercurrent so many of us as high achievers feel, and it comes out as insecurities, fears, anxieties, and then like you said, depression and OCD and multiple other manifestations of it when we don't curb it. And I love how you said that emotions are never good or bad. It's only about how you do deal with them, right? And how you navigate when an emotion surfaces. And somewhere I feel because we shun away these parts of ourselves, we kind of become more and more fragmented, right? Because we're like, oh, I can't feel angry. Oh, I can't feel this. And then we feel more and more like a empty shell of sorts because we've cut away so many parts of who we are. And then we wonder, hey, what's happening? Why am I not feeling fulfilled? But, our wholeness is completely lost.
And I think it's also to a large extent, we don't feel heard and seen because we're not able to be ourselves.
Yeah.
We hide parts of ourselves. We're somewhere also letting go of a part of our personality.
Yeah.
And we feel that, people will not accept us for who we are, or people will not be able to love us for who we are because that's been criticized by somebody. So that becomes really challenging for people to deal with.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think you already touched upon, self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And if you were to really go into it, right, if you can tell us a little bit more about the imposter phenomenon, what is it? And if I dare ask, is it even real?
It is very real. I can tell you because it's something I have also experienced. Because, whenever you go in life, you will always have people who will ask you if you're doing the right thing in life or not.
Mm. Yeah.
It could be family members, it could be relatives, it could be friends, etc. And there's always going to be somebody or the other who does not understand your journey. So when I started my practice, when I started with hospitals, obviously, because I wanted to work under people and get the insight. The funniest thing I heard was, what advice would you be able to give us when you're only 23 years old? Um, and that left me dumbfolded because I did not have an answer to that. And that made me kind of, feel that, am I really doing the right thing? Am I in the profession, in the right profession? Should I study more? Should I do more for people to understand me, accept me, and be able to, think that I am capable of doing it? So that every time I would go to work, I did not stop working, but that voice inside my head of what if would pop up. And imposter syndrome is that self doubt. it is that doubt that comes up saying that, you know what, maybe you're not doing things right. Maybe there is a better way of doing it. I'm sure there is a better way of doing it. I'm sure somebody else is always going to be ahead of you. I'm sure somebody else is doing a better job than you. But being able to recognize that this is your journey and not theirs is very, very important. Because if you compare, try comparing everything, right? We all have different experiences. We only compare with people when it comes to the good parts or the parts we like or the parts we want to imbibe. But what about other things that is happening like behind the screen or behind the backdrop? You don't really know. So it's always easier to, not easier, but better to kind of, compare yourself with only yourself. I was here 10 years ago. I am here today. Or I was here last year and I'm here today. I was here 3 months ago. I'm here today. Compare your progress with your life, because that is the only journey you can actually map out. Nobody else's. So it's very, very important to know that imposter syndrome is so real and everybody is experiencing it.
Right.
High achievers experience it more because they're constantly in the limelight. Because they have big things to achieve, they want big things to do, and which brings them also to a point where a lot more people will end up criticizing them,
Yeah.
right? Because when you're in a limelight, you there will be people who will not like the work you're doing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
They don't know your journey, they don't understand where you come from, the kind of struggles you face, etc. So it's just their opinion. Being able to separate other people's opinions from our self-worth does wonders for imposter syndrome.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Because the minute I'm able to say that, you know what, if this person feels this way, it's their opinion and they have the right to have their opinion. That's okay. They don't know my journey. I know my journey. I know why I'm here. It's okay for them to think a certain which way. I don't need anybody's acceptance but my own.
How powerful.
That, yes, that will change our life. Being able to believe in yourself is one of the most powerful things in this universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we all have our unique capacities. Nobody is better than anybody. It's just a journey. We are at different points in our lives. Maybe, yes, somebody's making more money, but you're doing what you're meant to do or what you were born to do, and you're doing the best of what you know and what you've learned. And that should be enough.
Yeah. Beautiful. So very, very real imposter syndrome. And what I hear from you is that it's much more common in high achievers, which we kind of already knew before we started this conversation, because it's a common recurring theme that most of us say that, am I good enough? Do I belong here? Do I deserve to be here? Do I deserve the next promotion? Is a constant line of
Yes.
complaint that most of us think through. And I love that part where you said that if you even were to make a comparison, compare the whole part rather than just the part, right? So compare the whole rather than the part. And I think there's so much power, because when you do the whole comparison, you'll realize that you can never compare because each of our journeys are so unique and so different that how can you even compare one journey with the other? And I noticed that, we did use the phrase of imposter syndrome and self doubt kind of overlapping. Are they the same thing or is there a difference?
So self-doubt is a part of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is more of an umbrella term of not feeling good enough, having self-doubt, constantly working harder in order to get that acceptance, or kind of not keeping that balance in our lives so that we can nail whatever we're trying to nail. It could be a project, it could be a conference, it could be a meeting, it could be a presentation. So self-doubt is a part of imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome houses a lot more many things. us trying to push harder, us trying to, I've seen a lot of people who will say that, I'm constantly connected to work because I feel that if I'm not, I start feeling guilty or I start feeling that I'm missing out on something. That too is a part of imposter syndrome because we feel that if we don't do enough, we will not be enough. Recognizing that is so important.
No wonder imposter syndrome is so plaguing, right? Because there's just so many things under that one single umbrella, and it motivates so much of our behaviors and our choices and our actions. And I'm curious, though, in terms of are there certain studies or anything from your experience that you'd say are mostly the origins of this feeling of, being a fraud or an imposter or like you don't belong somewhere?
Yes, there are studies that state that women
Hmm?
did more than men do. For the
Okay.
very fact that, when we are growing up, especially in Indian households, um, I think we are constantly prepared to get married.
Yeah.
Okay. So our career comes second to us becoming a good wife. And a lot of our behaviors are questioned. For example, I was a tomboy growing up. Okay. And every time I would sit with my legs apart, my mother would tell me, that's not how a lady sits. And I mean, a lot of women would relate to that because we're constantly told how to sit, how to behave, how to react, how to be more coy, how to be more, what you call it, what's the term, graceful, etc. So, our first priorities are never our careers. So when people question us for other things, we start questioning ourselves. That becomes our inner voice. And that's where the imposter syndrome starts building up from childhood to adulthood. When you do end up going to, let's say, offices, because that area of your life is not given importance, you constantly question yourself because nobody thought that this was important. And a lot of times I've seen women will be doing such good work and the family members will still be like, what are you doing on the home front? Right? Like, how much are you able to um, invest in your children or in your house? Or, are you cooking? Are you doing the cleaning? Or how are you managing your house? How much time are you giving to your children, etc.? Right? So, for women to actually believe, there's nobody who will tell them that, what, you're doing such a great job. You're working until and unless they've reached a level where they're getting recognized. Nobody tells them that, you are in this field, you're doing such a fabulous job. I mean, you're a mother or you're a wife, and yet you're managing so much. Instead, it's always more and more expectations, right? So that's where a woman starts questioning herself that, and I will hear this from a lot of mothers who say that, I left my babies back home and I'm working and I feel really guilty. And, I would question them, would your husband feel the same way? And a lot of times they'll be like, no, because they think their work is important, but isn't yours. But I'm a mother. So that questioning, that self-doubt, because we feel that we have to be superhuman and do everything, that somehow somewhere we've been taught that or brought up thinking that we have to have like 1,000 hands and be able to manage everything perfectly, manage our own emotions, manage our husband's emotions, manage our children's emotions. We forget that we are human and we can also only do so much. And reminding ourselves is so important. And even my mother, she's done so much for everybody in her life that now I tell her that, what, you need to live for yourself. And even when she does, there is that sliver of guilt that still comes up. right? So all these things, like, we need to start questioning, instead of questioning ourselves, maybe questioning the society, or maybe realizing that the society is always going to have opinions, and it is not my job to stand up to them. My job is to show up for myself and do what I want to do in my life or with my life. Period.
I think that's so very powerful. And like you rightly said, maybe it is a lot to do with our own upbringing and the conditioning that which we are raised with. And maybe women do feel that a lot more. And given the amount of checklists we are given on what to do and what not to do, and all the free advice on how we should make decisions in our life, I think it goes back to that, being very sure about what is it that we want to do in this life, and then accepting the humanness of and our limitations of how much really can we take
Absolutely.
up.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've been married for almost 10 years now. And I still get this question. My own mother asked me, when do you get into the kitchen? Will you ever cook? And I'm just like, when I have a person who's doing it,
Mm.
there's food on the table. Why do I need to do that? Being able to be assertive. Okay, I'm not saying that I don't know how to cook. When COVID had hit and there was nobody, I was able to do the house chores and do everything. You should know how to do things, but that does not mean that you have to constantly wear multiple hats all the time.
Yeah.
You have to cater to your own needs, your own emotions, your own self too. And that's equally important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think as high achievers, as much as we are driven and ambitious, I think it's also important to know what to let go of. We can't
Yes,
try and hold on to everything and expect
yes,
ourselves to be that superhuman kind of a
yes,
person where we do everything, right? So,
yes. So
beautiful.
also, a lot of high achievers tend to become people pleasers as well, because that constant need of acceptance or being validated that they're good enough starts arising,
Yeah.
right? Because if I'm not able to tell myself that I'm good enough, I'm constantly going to feel that let somebody else tell me. And that is going to make me feel more validated. So
Yeah.
we tend to start indulging in behaviors that, lead into people pleasing and make us feel that, okay, if this person accepts me, then I'm good enough. And our worth goes into the hands of others.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, it's very important when you are dealing with imposter syndrome to ask yourself, is your self-worth your own? Or will others decide how worthy you are?
Wow.
Till the day we decide that we are worthy, nobody else will. Because for everybody, worth has a different meaning. It has a different like intensity or understanding. Everybody will have a difference in that according to their own experiences or their own life and what they've seen and lived. So self-worth can never come from anybody else. It only comes from ourselves. And like I said in the beginning, actually celebrating small wins
Yeah.
is very, very important, because it reminds us how far we have come. I mean, we are always counting milestones that we need to cover, but what about the ones we've already achieved? Did we, celebrate those? Did we give ourselves a pat on the back? Sometimes we need to pause, reflect, and kind of be able to celebrate how far we have come. And that, when we do that, that gives us a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And that is very, very important.
Beautiful. So I already hear some powerful ways of navigating imposter syndrome, right? One, to really check whether our sense of self-worth is coming from within or from others' opinions. And two, like you said, celebrating those small wins. Any other tips that you'd like to add to this that will help our listeners who are suffering from imposter syndrome to navigate it?
So I think also I use a lot of affirmations and do a lot of mirror work.
Mm.
And when I say mirror work, I mean, when I still till date, there are times when I have to go and speak in front of a crowd, I will have that nervousness or that anxiety. What if? That will still come up. I stand in front of the mirror and I tell myself, you've done this before.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Kya hoga? You'll forget.
Yeah.
Even if you forget, you're human. You can start again. It's as real as you can be. You have to be real in this world.
Yeah.
Everything is not perfect. Human beings are not perfect. They're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? So being able to constantly talk to yourself and pump yourself up. And I constantly tell this to my followers as well. Be your own cheerleader. Don't wait for people to tell you you're doing such a good job. Tell yourself that, damn, you did so well.
Yeah.
You know what? You deserve to buy yourself flowers today. You did such a fantastic job. These are things we are constantly expecting from others. But when we tell this to ourselves, initially it feels like, what am I saying? But when you keep doing it, your brain starts recognizing that, somebody is giving you yourself, you spend the maximum amount of your life with yourself. And what you think about yourself will make all the difference.
Yeah.
The other important thing I feel is how we talk to ourselves. And I'm not talking about conscious talking. I'm talking about conscious talking, wherein, a lot of us, and we've all been there. You drop something, you make a silly mistake, and you'll be like, shit, you're so stupid. That's exactly what comes to our mind. We don't realize that before anybody else pulls us down, we pull ourselves down.
Yeah.
I mean, would you react like that if a child broke something? You wouldn't. You will have more compassion for the child than you do for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's very important. And this is a core of my practice where I tell my clients that, look, we can work a lot, but till you recognize your own patterns, till you're able to recognize your own self-sabotaging behaviors, the growth will be very, very slow.
Yeah.
Because every time you'll be able to rise above, your own voice will end up pulling you down.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important to recognize how we are talking to ourselves.
Right.
And also, be more kinder, keep giving ourselves, if we need proof, whenever we achieve something, write that down. What I do is put it on a post-it and I just stick it to the mirror.
Yeah.
So that every time I'm passing, I can read it.
Yeah.
Till I actually start believing that I was able to do it.
Yeah.
So, whatever works for you. And lastly, I think being in touch with your body and your needs. Not running. See, with high achievers, a lot of times we forget to cater to ourselves. And we, everybody talks about self-care, but I think a lot of people forget self-care is not pampering. Self-care is recharging, replugging. End of the day, and I give this example to everybody, end of the day, we are always, the minute we get home, we are putting our phone on charge or in the car itself so that the phone does not die. But how many times are we really recharging ourselves?
Yeah.
How many times are we taking the break we need, or catering to our body, or catering to our health, or saying that, what, today I just need to have an hour to myself. I need to go for a walk, or maybe sit in nature, or let me just go to that one dance class and just let it all out, or let me go trampolining today and just let my inner child be happy. How many times are we doing that?
Yeah.
So being able to balance your life and being able to recharge yourself is very, very important, because that just gives you more energy and more clarity to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. How powerful. Lovely. So many wonderful nuggets in just that little conversation we had. So I heard, doing some mirror work, being more mindful of our inner self-talk, being kinder to ourselves along the journey, recognizing our own self-sabotaging patterns, and of course, taking that time and space to relax and recharge. I know we can keep going for hours on this topic. I don't have so many questions, but in the interest of time, I think, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Yes.
Lovely. So we'll start with the simple ones first. Morning person or night owl?
Any day night owl. Doesn't get along with my family. Like my mother always says, why don't you get up in the morning and do yoga? And I'm just like, no, I'm more active. Night owl, any day.
Lovely. Books, movies, podcasts. What are your favorite way of consuming information?
Books. I love books. I've always loved books. I think when I was younger in school, my eyesight became very bad because I would read books under the cover, and behind my school books, I would always have like a book, but books any day.
Any top recommendations you'd like to give listeners from
For
your
books,
readings? Yeah.
so I use a lot of self-help books now, but I've been a huge fan of novels, and fantasy novels, mostly like, supernatural or things like that.
Beautiful.
Currently, I am reading The Couple at the Table
Mm.
by Sophie Hannah. And it's a nice book. It's a cute book. But it has like its own twists and turns, and it's kind of for me is like a escape from my reality as well at times. So
Yeah. Lovely. And I think that segues nicely into my question around what are some non negotiables in your daily routine?
my 30 minutes of space I need from everybody, including my husband. That's the me time I need. I cannot not have that. Um, the other thing is I need like 15 to 20 minutes between sessions to kind of pause, reflect, and not carry whatever I'm doing to the next day. 15 to 20 minutes of reading. And if I have more time, then obviously I will take that time and read. Um, Another very important thing and a part of my life since COVID has been my gratitude practice and reflection. I cannot function without it, to be very honest, because my work sometimes can get very overwhelming and experiencing a lot of emotions. By the end of the day, I really need to process what I'm feeling. Otherwise, it goes into my brain, kind of goes into an overdrive and carries it forward next day, which I don't want to do. So, and a gratitude practice helps remind me the good things I have in my life and keep going. So the silver lining, basically.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if you were to describe the pandemic for you in one word,
Honestly, I think if I see, I did get a lot of physical health issues, but honestly, if I see, it was the one time I actually got to know myself. I got the time to like sit back, pause, and do a lot of self discovery. Got to know what I really wanted in life, the direction I wanted to take. So for me, pandemic was actually a blessing in disguise.
yeah,
It
mm,
helped me where I am today. It helped me know what I wanted to do, or what I really, the path I wanted to take. So
yeah,
that
amazing. One thing you wish your younger self knew.
that I'm awesome. Honestly, I do this inner child thing where I'm constantly like reminding her that, you know what, despite of whatever happened or whatever you felt, know this, you are beyond awesome. You're gonna grow up and be fabulous. So just like don't worry and live your life the way you want to.
Yeah, amazing. And what a way to boost ourselves up. Just say you're awesome. Yeah. Okay. And if you were to, what does your best version look like for you?
So I think there is no correct answer for this for me, because I think every as you grow, that best version of yourself keeps changing. But I know for sure that I have some core values that I never want to let go of, which is one, compassion and kindness. You know, I think growing up, that was given to me by my family. And that is something that I carry very close to my heart. And I feel that, I cannot hurt or disrespect people. I can have my boundaries, but, that is something that I will carry forth always. So being compassionate, being kind to others. I think the other important thing for me is to constantly work on yourself because, like I said, best versions can keep changing. Maybe 5 years ago, my best version looked like what I am today. But today, I know that there is more to myself. And, like for example, sometimes I still get triggered with certain things. And I need to work on those triggers and heal. And that happens like as you go through life. Like I said, life will give you a curveball and be like, you know what? You thought you healed, but you did not. And you need to like be prepared for that. And honestly, be prepared to work on that. So also, I want to be somebody who, instead of becoming more defensive every time somebody finds something critical to talk about or criticize you, instead of taking it from a criticism point of view, um, take it more from a self-exploratory and, um, to kind of see whether what they're saying is right or not. Because even now, at times, when not from others, but I think from family members, especially from your partner, when they will say something, it does end up triggering you. And you just like want to react and not accept that you could also have a flaw. But that is something that I constantly want to keep working on, so that I should know that I, being human, it's not just me finding my flaws, but others will also find them, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, lovely. One last question. If there's
Yes.
one takeaway that listeners should walk away with from listening to this podcast, what would that be?
That would be that you are amazing. You just need to believe in yourself. You're capable, you're unique. Each fingerprint is unique. We don't say that, let me have a fingerprint of that person, because this is our identity. Just need to have that faith and believe in yourself and let the magic unfold.
How powerful. Thank you so much, Millin, for your honest sharing and such amazing, profound insights. I'm sure the listeners are going to find so much value from this conversation. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Shweta, for having me. This was something I was really looking forward to, because it's a topic that a lot of people don't talk about because of the fear of judgment. If I tell people that I'm doubting myself, what are they going to think about me, or what are they going to think generally? So I think it was such an important topic to, put light on. And I'm really grateful to be here. You're doing such a fabulous job. I have heard other podcasts as well, that you've done like different episodes, and just want to say that you're reaching out to a lot of people and doing some great work.
Thank
So
you.
thank
Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you, Millin.